All right. All right, so here we go. And welcome to another stream. This is my second one, so I hope at least the music's better than the first one. The first one beginning was way too loud. Today we are going to take a look at a way to generate fashion editorials and possibly answer the age-old question, can fashion be transposed on generated images? So let's take a look at what we've got here. We've got this workflow. And this is the first image that, actually the second one, that we have created. At least I have created. We haven't created anything together yet. And it starts off with a Blender pose. I'm gonna show the Blender scene in a sec. And then it applies a style, an item of clothing, and a face in order to get consistency throughout all of the editorial. So, and this is the first pass. The second pass we'll be talking about in a sec, and it's IC light pass, which is a new thing. It just came out yesterday, I think, or the day before, and it is a way to apply light to basically relight an image. It's still highly experimental. I think I will make the weekly video about it next week, coming up on Monday, and we'll take a look at that as well. So what we want to do is do something a bit like thumbnail. So something a bit, let's see where I've got it. Something a bit like this, where we have consistency between each shot, if we want to call it that, and we have consistency with the clothes, and hopefully we won't have any issues with clothes not appearing on while we're live on sensitive parts of the body. Not that it ever happened. Sure. Okay, so let's go over to Blender. And I'm gonna show you the first step in order to get this thing going. So in Blender, we have this scene over here. It's basically an infinite backdrop, which, if you don't know how to do that, I will show that in a second. Two lights, one key light on top and one fill light over here, both area lights. And what we're doing, we're just creating renders out of poses that we like and we think are interesting and can result in good pictures. And after that, we use those pictures as sources over here for two control nets, one for depth and one for open pose. Pretty easy. And the other thing that we want to control is the overall style of the picture, which is going to be this one. This is a generated picture that I like for style. And all through different IP adapters, one for style, one linear, which is the usual kind of IP adapter that you usually have, but with some different embed scaling, and one for face, because as I was saying earlier, it's a fashion editorial with just one model, and we want to have this same consistency all throughout the editorial, at least for face and body. Well, the body will come regardless, because we have the same model inside of Blender, but the face not so much. And after that we'll try to relight it so that it comes out with an interesting backdrop and lightning. Okay, so let's set up the scene in Blender first, and then let's go over the workflow. In order to set up the scene in Blender, what we want to do is have a Mixamo model. If you don't know what Mixamo models are, let me just grab you one of my videos from, well, a couple of weeks ago. And you can go and watch that when you have the time. Let's see if I can find one. Okay, so like this one. This one's a good one. Share, copy. I'm gonna drop it in the chat. Where's the chat? There we go. Okay. And you can watch that in order to have an understanding of what a Mixamo model is. Basically, a Mixamo model is an animated FBX model that comes already with everything that you need baked in, and you can just download from the Mixamo website. I've seen that some of you have joined, so if you have any issues with video or audio, please let me know. Now is your moment. I can't double check myself because I can't hear me and I can't see me, so that'd be great. And in Blender, what we want to do is just go over to File and import an FBX. And that FBX will be the Mixamo model that we'll be working with today. Just a sec. And since it's an animated model and we're using sort of a dummy human model, it doesn't have any distinguishing features. It has just a sort of, oh, thank you, Ahmed. And it just has like a sort of a, you know, base kind of body. It would be really great if it had eyes and a mouth, so that ControlNet pose would recognize it better. But this is the best model that I can find on Mixamo that didn't have like a lot of features that would influence the results and still have some, you know, and still could be picked up by OpenPose. And as I was saying, since it has an animation baked into it, we can just go over the timeline and see how it moves. For example, this is a dance animation. You can see how it dances. And so once we find a frame that we like, we can stop and just wait a sec while I set everything up. So as I said, we were having infinite backdrop, much like a studio. Now this would be a very big studio that would cost you a bit of money in order to book, but what we can do here in Blender is just search for a cube, bring it up on the Z-axis up until around the feet, and then go over to the edit mode and select the edges here, here, oh wait, here, 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 and here, and delete them. Delete edges. And that will give us something like this. Now, this is not an infinite backdrop, but it will be in a second. So if we select this edge and press S, no, wait, it's press R, no, it's bevel, right? First, we have to bevel it, which is Control B or right-click bevel. And we bring it up. We can see that a curve of sorts is starting to happen. Now what we want to do is press S or R. Wait, I never remember the, should be S, yeah. S, and then bring up the mouse and it creates a nice curve behind it. Once we are done with it, we can just exit edit mode and go back to object mode and resize it in all the directions we want. So let's say we wanted to resize it in the X direction, and it grows. So up until we get a nice scene that we can use, such as this one. Now that we have that, we just need to set up some lights. In my case, that's 2 area lights here and here, and set up the camera so that it creates a interesting sort of image. Once we got the kind of image that we want, we can just render the image. And once it's done rendering, we can just save it. And we're going to use that as a base. Now, in order to get a good lighting and sort of a good overall feel to it, I like going over to the render setting, to the scene settings, and set up cycles and GPU compute in my case, since I'm working on my GPU. Because Eevee, I'm going to show you the difference, but it's not great. At least not out of the box. Whereas cycles is absolutely great, just straight out of the box. In order to get Eevee good right out of the box, you have to add some ambient occlusion, you have to work your way around the lights and textures a bit more. So once we got our render going, and we can also set up the dimensions so that we don't have to resize them in ComfyUI later or in Photoshop. In my case, that's 512 by 640. We are gonna go over to our ComfyUI workflow. So I've already set up this workflow. If you want me to set it up from scratch, that's fine, just ask and I'll do it. But what this workflow does basically is just take this image, this starting image that we just rendered in Blender, and go through a couple of control nets here, one for depth and one for open pose. You can see that we have some previews here for troubleshooting, and we have a depth map here and a preview image with the open pose here. Hello, Kyle. Hey. Oh, it's not that insane. I mean, it's interesting, but it's really easy to use. Don't be too worried about how it all sounds and looks complicated and complex. It's not really. It's just a very simple and effective way to reach the results that we want to have. And after it goes through, like the starting image goes through all of the control net steps, it goes through a VAE encode node, and I've set up also a bypassed upscale latent by that I'm not going to use because I wasn't liking the results, so I might as well just delete it. And it goes through a K-sampler. It feeds a latent image here, so it has the. Could you share the link for the project? Yes, after the live is over, I will update in the next day or so. I will update with the workflow. And so the K-sampler is here, and the K-sampler, the model that goes into the K-sampler, goes through 3 different IP adapters. Sorry. The first IP adapter is a style transfer. We're starting from a very low weight style transfer. It's 0.2 only, and it just gives the overall feel to the resulting image. And then we have an IP adapter for the clothes that we're going to wear. So that's a linear weight type, same as usual, but with a couple of twists. We have the source image here. We have a mask for the attention mask for the parts of the body that we want to cover, that we want to be influenced by the IP adapter. And then we are looking at the K plus V with C penalty embed scaling. Now, what's this? Usually we have V only, but what we are doing is we want to have channel penalty for this one, because I've found through testing that it renders the clothing much more similar to, in a better way, to at least related to the source image. Like the results might be worse from a generation point of view, but in order to get consistency with the source images, I found that channel penalty is better scaling. That works better, at least with high weights. And then we have a final IP adapter for the face of the model, because as I was saying earlier, we want to have the same model throughout all of the shots. So, well, right now it's in style transfer because I got that wrong, but it works nonetheless. It could be linear, really. And it's V only, same as before. The only K plus mean V with channel penalty is the one for the clothing. And obviously on the unified loader is set at plus face. Okay, so this is the basis of the base of the first steps here. We're working with 1.5. Specifically, we're working with Epic Realism Natural Scene, the VAE model, and we like the one with the VAE already baked in, I mean. And for prompts, we only have two prompts, two very simple prompts. One positive, which is white backdrop, because I want a white backdrop in the background, and not safe for work in negative prompts, because I kind of want to be saved by, you know, any accidents that might happen on YouTube. And the second part of the workflow is little gem that just came out a couple of days ago. I don't remember if it was yesterday or the day before, but it's called IC Lightning. IC Light, actually. And it's basically a relight model, and it's by the same dev, or at least the actual application in Stable Diffusion is by the dev that brought us ControlNet. And it's here, the workflow that I have here is basically a copy-paste of the workflow found on this GitHub that I'm going to bring up in a sec. Just one moment. Where do I have it? Over here, I think. I see light. There we go. Yep, there it is.
There's a new way to
oh, wait. Sorry, that was an old video by Olivia, which I love and I keep going back to. Okay, so wait a sec. Okay, here we go. Gonna bring up the stream again. Okay, and this is the GitHub for the IC Lite ComfyUI nodes. Now, I don't have the latest version because it's been updated basically, I don't know how many times in a day, really. I think I git pulled it yesterday evening, and I think I've updated it 2 times already, and every time I've updated it, it keeps on getting updated. So I hope that by the time I will record the video on IC Lite, I will get at least to like more stable version that doesn't get updated every second, but the dev is doing an amazing job. So right now it's working in a way that it's a very simple concept. Basically, what you want to do, let me get back to the actual workflow. I think it was this one. It was, no wait, it was this one, okay. I have so many workflows open. What you want to do is just either separate the original image from the background and add a new background, or bypass the background step completely and generate a mask that is gonna act as your light source. So in this example, the background is influencing the overall lighting of the image, and in my testing it influences a bit too much, and we'll see later how to numb that down a bit. And you can have both the background lighting influencing the overall picture and the mask that asks that works as a lighting source. And I'm gonna link the. I use Comfy for product design. I've been waiting for a lighting plugin like this one for a long time. Yes, it is awesome because it appears to be working with. I'm gonna link the GitHub in the chat so you can take a look by yourselves. But it appears to be working with normals rather than depth maps, and that's great. So you want to download 3 models. I only have one right now because it's the one that works the best right now. And you want to place them in the UNet folder inside of your models folder in your ComfyUI usual location. And then you want to install this missing custom nodes. It's a painless task, really. It's fast and easy. And then you want to use both those images, the one for the subject and the one for the backdrop. You want to encode them and use them as latent in an IC light conditioning node. And then use the lighting mask that you have here, encode it, and use that as a latent image, basically. The first iteration of this GitHub, these custom nodes, used an instruct instruct pix-to-pix workflow. So I think that this IC light conditioning node is just sort of a custom wrapper for an instruct pix-to-pix workflow of sorts, and that's why the latent that you're encoding is this one rather than the subject and the background, because you're basically instructing the latent to overimpose these ones, but with this lighting. And yeah, here's the result, which is very, very, very red. But what we want to do later is just merge the starting image and the resulting image, the red image, over in Photoshop and do some post-producing, and these kind of images will come out. Just a sec. There we go. So I think that I'm starting to get some good results, honestly. And I wanted to check with you if we can actually make it consistent and we can make it through a whole editorial. I don't know if I have the time to do a whole editorial today, but I want to try my hand with different outfits, with different poses, and we're going to go through all of that together. Okay, so let me show you just a sec how it works here. So let's change the seed for a sec and hit Q prompt. And I'm gonna hide the resulting image just in a sec, just in case a not safe for work image comes out. And then we're gonna go through what changes, what works, what doesn't. And then we're gonna try another pose. So it's almost there. There we go. So some things have changed from the previous image, and I'm going to show you. So this was the previous image, and this is the image that we have now. Why so much has changed if we are using 2 control nets, one for depth and one for open pose? Well, the first thing to note is that we are using a very low strength on the depth map. That's because we have to leave some room for the generation to be influenced by the item of clothing that we want to have. If you go back and look at the previous live stream, I was talking about how if you have a very high depth and you have a sort of a loose fit on the item of clothing that you're trying to generate, then it won't generate a good like a good amount of clothing, because it doesn't have enough room to work with. And we're also using a very low strength on the open pose control net for the same reasons, basically. So the poses are not as consistent as you might want them to be, but it gives more ample room to actually get the clothing right. Also, if we bring up the previous image, you can see that the design has changed a bit, and there's nothing much that we can do about it. I've talked about it back in the previous live stream, but resolution doesn't play too much of a role here, I think. What I think that happens, and I think it's the reason why e-commerces haven't been flooded yet by generated pictures, is that Clip Vision sees at a too low resolution, at least for now, or at least the Clip Vision models that we are using with the IP adapters that we have. And so it doesn't have a way to see all the intricacies and details that we have going on here. So the only thing that we can do is try to keep generating in order to get a result that is as close as possible to the item of clothing that we want, or generate more and more in order to, sort of merge different generations together in order to get the right item of clothing. Like sometimes it will get better, sometimes it won't. In my case, I think it was this seed. Let's see. Yeah, the clothes were quite similar to what we had, or maybe it was this one, I don't remember. Yeah, it was this one. The item of clothing was definitely much more similar. So let's bring up another item. Let's bring up another pose, another garment. Okay, so we want to have this item now, which is a long dress with paillettes, and I think it's from Balenciaga. And as you can see, I've cropped it a lot because the bottom of the dress is not as important for the kind of pose that we have. But the detail, we want the Clip Vision to be aware of it. So the closer we crop in, the more details that Clip Vision can actually see. So let's go ahead. Let's not change the pose for now. Let's just keep on generating a bit. And let's see what happens. If you have any questions in the chat, please let me know. And there you go. As you can see, for this one, we didn't get a good result at all, because the original image, the original reference image that we have here, is completely different. So you can't keep the same settings, unfortunately, for such a custom-made kind of a look. It's not your usual sort of a e-commerce model standing pose that we are used to on e-commerce websites. It's more complex, and we have to account for that. So for example, if I bring up, let's see, which one was that? I think it was, let's see, with, I don't know, this one. Let's see if this one works actually. I'm going to bring up this pose here. I'm going to bring it up over here in the attention mask as well. And then I am going to right click on it, open a mask editor, and select the parts that we want to change. So that's everything up to the neck area. Let's go and use the brush and save to node. And let's hit Q prompt again. Now it's going to take a little bit more because it has to recalculate all the depth and open pose. Let's see if actually open pose can be solved, because this is a very narrow shot. Yeah, it couldn't pick up an open pose. We're going to see if that influences the results or not. Hi Andrea, thank you for sharing your work. I'm pretty new to ComfyUI. Why you add a VAE encode? The code node not connecting directly from the checkpoint. No, basically what I want to do, yes, the VAE, the code node is over here, and it connects directly to the checkpoint. But I want to have an image that starts from the image that we have rendered in Blender with the same dimensions, basically. Because the way I've rendered it, I already know the dimensions, and they're right. They're 512 by 640. So, like, I'm going to show you, but there's going to be basically no difference if I'm using an empty latent image. That is 512 by 640. I'm going to input that instead of a VA encode. And I'm going to generate. Hold on one sec. And there we go. Since I'm using a denoise of 1, if I encode this image or if I use an empty latent image, it's going to be basically the same. But by using an empty latent image, I have to know the dimensions that I want, whereas by using a VA encode, if I already know the dimensions of the image I'm encoding, the dimensions are going to be those of the image that I'm encoding in. It's really a matter of personal taste. So here we have the result. I'm going to hit Q prompt again, and I'm going to wait for the previous generation, the one with the VAE encode. And yeah, you can see that it's basically the same thing. I actually like the results better with the empty latent image for this particular one, but it's like changing the seed basically, because it's generating a slightly different latent. And there we go. We got another one. So we can see, let's talk details, right? Let's bring up the face and the garment over here. So we can see that it had some, it added some details that are not present here. So what we could do is just crop in a bit more in order for Clip Vision to actually see better. And we might just do that. Let's actually open Photoshop. I'm gonna change the capture screen just a sec so that you don't see any personal project as I might have opened like in the last few sessions of Photoshop that I might not be allowed to share. And I am going to hold on just a sec. There we go. I've imported the image that we're working with inside of Photoshop, and I'm gonna resize it a bit so that we get better details, possibly. I don't know. Gonna save it as detail. Gonna close that, and let's use that instead. There we go, dropped it in, and let's generate again. There we go, it's better, but it's still not quite good. But as I was saying before, it is a matter of actually trying to see generation after generation which image is the closest to the garment that we have. Because I'm going to show you, if we try and force the garment by upping the weight on the IP adapter that is relevant to the garment, like this one is better, it's a lot better. I'm going to show you that if I'm upping the weight to 1.2 here on the IP adapter that takes care of the garment. It's starting to add stuff. So yeah, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Let's lower it to 0.8 and see what happens. But since we're like, usually a fashion editorial is like 6 to 12 images, something like that. So you don't need to create a ton of images, and you can get away with trial and error in this case. If you were trying to develop a way to generate for an e-commerce website instead, I wouldn't suggest that. Okay, so now we got an image that we like, and the image has been generated here and then passed through the IC Light group. And now what we want to do is just, I'm going to show you how the IC Light group works. So we have the generated image. It goes through these sort of remove background node, and it fills it up with a sort of a gray color. And then we have a background image that I've prepared in Photoshop that I liked. And basically the image gets resized to the right sizing, and it gets like both the background and the image without the background gets encoded into two latents that are then fed into an IC Light conditioning node. This is a custom node. You can find the link in the chat, and if you can find it, tell me so and I will link it again. And then we have an image, a light source here that is created through a mask. The mask is acting basically as a source for light. In this case, the light is hitting right over here. And the relight that's happening is happening from the background as well. Let me just show you. If we change the background from red to gray and hit Q prompt again, yeah, you can see that the overall lighting is not red anymore. Now, I don't need all of that red, but I like the tones of it. So I'm going to show you what I want to do in Photoshop now. I want to right click on it, copy it, and then bring it over to Photoshop. And then go back to ComfyUI, copy the original image, and paste it over inside of Photoshop. Now, inside of Photoshop, what I want to do is just select the subject, mask it. I'm gonna, like, for the, this is not perfect, but it's the kind of look that I like. So I'm gonna go for that. I'm gonna add a Gaussian blur. Gonna up the pixels a bit. It's a bit smudged in a way. Then I'm going to sort of blend it in so that we can still get some nice details on the face and on the skin, while everything else gets like changed by this red light. And if we need to, we can adjust the mask a bit by, let's see, by using a gradient of sorts in order to create sort of a halo effect. Now, the kind of post-producing that I'm doing is just, you know, very, very basic post-production work. I'm just duplicating the layer, adjusting the brightness and the contrast, adding some adjustments here for the levels. I'm going to basically break the file a little bit, so in order for it to look more, you know, scratched in a way. And I'm going to just create two new empty layers, paint white over here, select the color range, select the whites in order to blow the highlight a bit, and then do the same for the blacks. There's so many ways to skin this cat. This is not the only way to do it. You might have a different workflow that does basically the same. That's absolutely fine. And this is the difference from before and after. Remember, this is an editorial. Or it could be an editorial or an advert, but we don't need to be actually, 100% similar or equal to the actual garment that we have. This is not e-commerce. This is not product photography. I'm going to select the white again, fill it in once again, and then I'm going to filter, blur, motion blur, and add a bit of a motion blur. This is way too much, so I'm adding a bit less. And I'm lowering the opacity a bit. And there we go. Now, if we bring it up with the other images that we already created, let's do that. Let's go with this one over here. And with this one over here, which is very, very similar, maybe too similar. We might want to, wait a second, I got to extend it a bit. Let's go. Select, wait a minute, okay. There we go, place it over here. I'm just gonna, let's say I'm gonna swap this one. I'm gonna reflect it, rotate, flip. That's the word. No, wait, just this one, not everything. And flip horizontal. Like, we can see that we have a lot of consistency going on. And we can maintain it, we keep on maintaining it in a nice way. Now let's add some more noise and scratches over this image so that it looks a bit more like photocopied, for example, which is a look and feel that is going great with fashion photography right now. Gonna copy a photocopy texture that I found on Google Images, and I'm gonna use a divide blending option and lower the opacity a bit. And there we go. Can duplicate it, and I'm gonna use a sort of a difference blend and put it on top. And we can see how it is coming together quite nicely. Okay, so let's do the same again from the top. Any questions up till now? So we got this scene, and we can change the pose if we like. We can select a different pose. We can change the angle, everything up until we get a nice pose that we want to use. So let's go, let's see. Let's go with something like this. Let's see if it works. I'm gonna hit Ctrl-Alt-0, and we're gonna get a new frame. Now I can change the camera a bit. I'm using a 34mm as a focal length, which is a rather wide angle kind of a lens. And what I want to do is always have some sort of reference for open pose to actually pick up the open pose skeleton. So I can't crop it in such a way that, like, let's say for example I want to crop it like this. Now open pose is going to have a hard time understanding what's going on here. But let's do that anyway so that I can show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to go over like this, and I'm going to hit render image. And there we go. We're going to wait for the image to be rendered. Whoops. I'm not sure how the lighting node has affected the image. Just looked like an overlay. Yes, it did. I'm going to show you the difference in just one sec. That's because I've used a very, very basic sort of image as a background, but I'm going to show you. Let's call it base 14. I think I've got like 12 different bases now. And so let me change this with I don't know, with, let's say, this picture of a sunset, and hit Q prompt. There you go. You can see how it is still like sort of a very, very rough way to edit lighting, but it's trying to act, from what I understand, in a similar way to what an HDRI would, because what it's doing is extracting sort of a normal map from the starting picture and then applying the lighting that, or just the quote-unquote lighting that it understands is coming from the background on top of the original picture. So in this case, the main key light is coming from the right. So as you can see, the right side of her face is more lit up. Can you all see that? Now, it's not perfect, not at all, but it is I think a powerful tool. Like if we remove the, yeah, it is subtle. It is subtle. It's not too in your face. If you want more of an in your face kind of feel, we can try and removing the background, and we can just work with this light instead. And I'm going to show you just that. Let's hit Q prompt and see what happens. Wait, no, right, because I don't have a background, so I have to use the image directly from this one. Let's do that. Let's see if that works. It should. Q prompt. No. Oh, wait, yeah. It's not starting because this one's not starting. Okay, it's taking the, okay. Sorry. There we go. Again, what? I'm sorry, I haven't tested it yet without the background. So, like, let's use a black background, I guess. I'm gonna create a black background so that we can see how it works. That's the easy way to do it. Black. And let's do that. So we want to have this one go through here and this one go through here and connect the background and put the black background in here. And I'm missing the image here. Yeah, right. There you go. And if we do like spotlight here in the positive prompt, let's see how that changes. Changes a bit. Let's see beauty dish. I am testing live, so I'm not, I don't know if this is the right words. Softbox. I'm using terms that I know from photography. Yeah, it is working because softbox is a lot softer than a beauty dish is. So Comfy is really cool, but I had to change to Forge. It's much faster. Yeah, I guess it all depends on what you're doing. If you're doing stuff that don't require a lot of tinkering and a lot of custom fine-tuning, then yeah, I can see where you're coming from. If you're always trying to experiment and deliver like custom workflows to clients, I don't think, like, maybe Swarm is a good alternative, but otherwise, I've used Auto 1111 for a long time, and figuring out all the APIs in order to have it act as a backend and then write Python scripts or JavaScripts for it was not the right place to be, let's put it that way. Also, I'm not a developer at all, so it is like, at least to me, writing code is one of the worst things that you could force me to do. But let's go back to actually generating new poses. So your render speed is very fast. What spec is yours? Well, actually, I'm working on SD 1.5, and that's why it's so fast. When you're working with SDXL, it's always a lot slower, but I am working on, let's say my specs are graphics card, which is the one I guess all of you are most interested in. It's a 3080 Ti. I got it for work because I'm a fashion photographer, but I was doing some 3D stuff and some generative AI stuff before the leak came out, actually 3 years ago. I got it during the great GPU shortage of 2020, was that? Or 2021? I don't remember. The one where mining was involved. And so not a lot of GPUs were available. And I had to settle for a 3080 Ti. Now, if I had the knowledge that I have now, and you know, hindsight is 2020, but I would go for either a 3090 or a 4090, just because of VRAM. SD 1.5 is a lot faster than SDXL. Like, this is 40 steps. It is fast. It is very, very fast. It is, like, I'm not saying it's comparable to SDXL Lightning, but if I were to do 40 steps with SDXL, it would take a long time. And also on top of that, I'm in the particular case where I am both screen recording and streaming, so all these things tax the GPU, so it's like, it's not great, obviously. So we just rendered an image. Let's go back a sec, and because we got lost a bit, we just rendered this image inside of Blender, and we can put it over here in the control net and over here in the IP adapter. Let's put back all of these IP adapters source images. So these, for anyone tuning in that wasn't here before, we're trying to generate a fashion tutorial based on poses from a Mixamo character in Blender, and then using that as a reference for images that we want to create. So let's get back the outer dress that we have, which is this one, inside of the IP adapter. And what we want to do now is use this as a base, as a frame of reference for the generation that we want to create. But first we have to tell the IP adapter what part of the body we want to cover with the item of clothing that we have. So we are going to mask it. Actually, wait, I got that wrong. We have to go up to the wrist. We're going to cover the whole body up to the neck. Right now I am in the mask editor. If you right click on an image node, you can go directly into the mask editor and you can hook up the mask. in this case to the attention mask input inside of the IP adapter node. Okay, everything is ready, and let's hit QPrompt. I'm gonna just put this one a bit over here so that you can't see it. Oh, wait a sec. I didn't realize I selected the wrong scene for you. Everything was a bit skewed. Okay, so it's calculating. So how's your Friday going, chat? Everything going well? What are you doing? What are you eating tonight? I'm eating pizza. A bit cliche for an Italian, huh? Okay, it's generating. As you can see, it's very fast. Oh, you can't actually see that. Yeah, but you can see it over here. And there we go. Yeah, it is not safe for work. But as you can see, the garment is not quite the same, but it got what we were going for. The body pose is quite the same. So what I want to do maybe is just force the IP adapter a bit more. Let's say we go up to 1, and let's see what happens now. And it got better, just a bit better, not too much. The design is quite not the same yet. So let's go up to 1.3 and hit QPrompt again. As I said, a lot of trial and error for this one. Unfortunately, there is no way to be sure that the actual item of clothing. And we're starting to get a better result, but we got some artifacts here and over here, over the neck as well. Now that's why, and that's because we are forcing the image a bit too much inside of the IP adapter. Let's crank it up to 1.8. I'm gonna show you what happens when you force it a bit too much. And there we go. Like you can see that the design is much more consistent now, but we get some, like a lot of artifacts now. It's starting to hallucinate stuff around. And here is starting to pick up the cloth tag that's in the back, and it's using it in the front. Whereas with lower weight, it wasn't doing that. So maybe this item of clothing is not a good one for this one. Let's do this one. Let's see if that works. And it's better. It is a lot better. Actually, I'm quite impressed. This one was an easy one. Let's bring up the reference image. It's not 100% the same. The pleated fabric should be starting from here. And we also have like 6 fingers here, but nothing new on that front, right? But overall, the composition and, for a pose so different from the reference, it's doing quite well. So let's actually try to fix that up a bit. Whoops. Let's go with 1. Let's see what happens with 1. Yeah, and with 1 it's not working at all because it is different. It is harder. Like it is a hard one to crack. So let's go to 1.4. What's the difference between IP adapter advanced and IP adapter? I see some people use advanced and some use normal. Also same with case sampler. Okay, so I'm gonna answer the case sampler one first because it's the easiest. Case sampler and case sampler advanced are basically the same node, but with the case sampler advanced, you have more agency on some of the inputs. The inputs are basically all the same except for sigmas, but basically what you have on the case sampler advanced node, I'm gonna bring that up so that's simpler. Case sampler advanced. Oh, wait, that's the normal one. The case sampler advanced has more stuff. Oh wait, wasn't this one? Case sampler. Which one was the one with case sampler provider? No. Let's bring up sigmas. Custom, not flip sigmas, custom sigmas. And from here, we have sampler custom advanced. Yeah, so basically case sampler and sampler custom advanced are the same node, but everything here is, you can set it up as a different node. And the case sampler advanced is basically the same as this one with a bit more stuff into it. Like I use the normal case sampler because I can't be bothered with fine-tuning every single thing. I'm lazy. And for IP adapter advanced and normal IP adapter, the normal IP adapter I think was the previous version of IP adapter. That's IP adapter v1. Back in March, if I remember correctly, Matteo, the dev for IP adapter plus, released a new version of IP adapter, which is v2, and it was a complete node rewrite. And so basically what happened is that it gave different names to the nodes that he developed, and so IP adapter became IP adapter advanced. And maybe if you find some older workflows, they still use the IP adapter without advanced, but the IP adapter advanced is much more on top of the stuff that's happening now, whereas the older one is not been actively developed, at least not that I know of. Okay, so let's say that we like this one, even if I don't. Let's just try our last one, 2, which is like, I think it's the most that IP adapter goes. I don't know, it goes up to a lot, yeah. Let's hit Q prompt. Let's see if we get a better one. And yeah, okay, I could be satisfied with this one. So we're gonna add that one to our fine collection of editorial images. If you just landed, we are using both images. This one is the generated one that we just generated. This one is the one that we just relit. Yes, English is hard. And we are basically blending them together by selecting the subject, masking it, applying a slight Gaussian blur because I like it to be slightly broken, and then adjusting the opacity a bit so that we can get some nice detail in the skin. Otherwise it will be completely lost here. We could mask it better, of course, and then we're gonna bring that down, do some light post-production work on it. I'm gonna do that in just a sec. Let's go. This is basically a speed run of what I normally do on my pictures. Gonna select some white. Gonna blow it out. I'm gonna turn it down a bit. Gonna select some blacks, do the same. Blow those out as well. Then I'm gonna blend it in just a bit. Then I'm going to do it once again for the whites. and I'm gonna apply a slight motion blur. Then I'm gonna copy that and put it right over here, where these other ones are. And I am actually going to fix these two layers so that they can get in on the action as well. And there we go. We have 4 images. Let's do one last one then. Okay, let's see. Let's open Blender and let's find another pose that we like through the animation. Let's do like a sweeping motion. This is, I want it even closer in. Maybe this is the close in. Let's do it like that. Okay. And let's render this frame. And once this frame is done rendering, it will be our reference for the last generation that we're gonna do. So we're gonna save that one. I'm gonna save it at base 15 and save that. Is it possible to add accessories after putting clothes? Yes, but that's a whole different beast that we won't be covering today, because that's all about in painting. And I find that it's a lot easier to try and do all of that. So you can go back and watch the previous live stream. I know it's a long one. You can probably jump ahead a bit or try to find the right spots. But I've talked about it, I think. And I think that it's, in order to generate fashion pictures that are like the most coherent with the source material, you have to have a good base. So in order to have a good base, you could either try to generate an image that has all the clothing that you need, so accessories as well, all through a single pass with a lot of different IP adapters, each taking care of a different part of the body. So in my previous live stream, we built a workflow to generate a person wearing a jacket and some trousers. And that's done with 2 different IP adapters acting on the same generation on different masks. But and you can do that, and then you can just fine tune each different part by zooming in and cropping in, and then blending all of the different pictures that you generated together into one. That way you can focus on details later, but you're starting from a good base. And apart from that, what you could do is just try to tinker together inside of Photoshop in order to sort of create a bad composite picture and start from that instead. Okay, so let's bring in the picture that we just created with Blender and rendered with Blender, both here in the ControlNet section and here in the IP adapters. And let's see. Well, I'm gonna try and find a reference. What do we want to have? What could be interesting? Let's do another Balenciaga, I guess. Just one sec. I'm gonna try and find an interesting Balenciaga outfit. I guess this one is similar and it's kind of in the same vein as the other ones. Okay, download. And I'm gonna open that up in Photoshop just to crop it and show you. Where is it? Just one sec, chat. Okay, there we go. We got this one, and since the picture that we are worrying about is basically just from the waist up, we're gonna crop that in a lot. It's not that high of a resolution, but we'll hope that it works. And we're gonna use that as a reference image here in the IP adapter. And we're gonna open this image here that is taking care of the attention mask in Mask Editor, and we are going to tell the IP adapter where we want the clothing to be applied. Now I think this is a high risk image. There might be some parts of the body that could be shown that shouldn't be, so I'm gonna hit Q prompt and I'm gonna put the generated image away for a sec so I can double check it before actually showing it to you. Oh, thank you, Han. Yeah, actually, like, coming from fashion photography, I find the sharing of knowledge that we have in the generative AI space quite refreshing, to say the least. I'm not, as being a fashion photographer, I'm not used to it. Like, being in the open source space is pretty fun. Okay, no boobies. Okay, great. Yeah, it didn't go well. The depth is not being picked up at all, and I think the IP adapter is trying too hard. So let's lower that to 1 and generate again and see if we have an issue with depth or what. It might also be because the open pose is not picking anything up, because as I said before, if you don't leave enough space for the open pose to actually understand what's going on, it won't be able to generate something that is, close enough. Okay, I don't know where it's picking up the white. It really shouldn't be. And I think it's not understanding that this one is a face. So let's redo the render over in Blender and pick a different pose. Let's do something a bit like this, I guess. Let's see if this works. This is a very weird pose to have, but let's see if it works. Okay, let's save it. Yeah, if I added face features, it would work better. Definitely. Unfortunately, Mixamo doesn't have a model that is as bare bones as this one, but with face features. And all the models that have faces, they have clothes on, so it doesn't work that well. I mean, it works great for open pose. It doesn't work great for depth. And also, like, trying to have good, like, trying to rig models is something that I don't know how to do. And the auto rig for Mixamo is, well, to say it's scuffed, it would be like an understatement. It never works. I've tried importing custom models inside of it, like a normal dummy, for example, and it just never works. Well, actually, no, this dress doesn't have arms. Sorry for that. It's just over here, I guess. Let's see how that works. I don't have high expectations for this one. Let's see the Q prompt. Oh wow! Oh no! No, actually, this is a hand. Okay, no, it understood what's going on. Thanks, Alexa. Is it? Oh my God! Oh no! Oh God! No! Oh my God! Oh no! Yeah, maybe another pose. Let's do something like this. A way simpler one. Yeah, the nice thing about generative AI that it always tries, you know. It always tries to give you something. It gives and it gives and it gives and never asks for anything in return. But sometimes the stuff it gives is the stuff of nightmares. Hey Antro, how are you? You got out on our last generation. Let's see if that works. Okay, we got depth and we got open pose. Great. Like you can see here that it's trying to understand the face, even if the face has no features. Sometimes it can actually. Sometimes it's a bit scuffed, but yeah. All good. We got a good one. Like as you can see, the reference has been, you know, taken into consideration. It's not quite the same, but it's not too far off. So I am going to lower it just a bit to, let's say, 0.9 and see what happens with that. And that's a lot better, yeah. We got some seams here that we shouldn't have, but all in all, good. That's good. All right, let's add the last picture to our editorial. Bring that inside of Photoshop. Copy the original one as well. Copy it on top. Select the subject. Apply the mask. Lower the opacity a bit so that the red seeps in just a bit. And I am going to add a slight Gaussian blur to it so that it's a bit scuffed, and I like it. And then we're going to collapse all into one, add some adjustment layers, lower the brightness, up the contrast, some curves, some levels. Actually, this is not curve, and just break it up a bit. Gonna blow out the highlights. So not exactly lowering the number on IP adapter, the results get influenced less actually. It's just that, so IP adapter should go from 0 to 1. And but the thing is, it doesn't. It goes like way more up than that, and that's why we're using channel penalty, because it works better at higher numbers, higher values. But the thing is, we are working with very, very tiny details, and we want to pick those up. So we're using high values for a, like, usually use around, like, say from 0.6 to 0.8, but we're using from 1 to 1.4. So when you go all the way up like that, what happens is the generation starts hallucinating, and you don't want that. It starts adding details that aren't there. So sometimes going down helps a lot. It is a balance between how close it is to the source, and how do you say it? How many details you get out of it. So you have to test that out a bit. And let's expand it a bit. Add this picture over here, and bring it down over here, and expand the photocopy effect, and recrop it. Oh, this one's too bright. Let's lower the brightness just a smidge. Create clipping mask. There we go. That's our weird editorial. Pranav, when we add a t-shirt with the print on it, it messes up the complete print. How can we fix that? Well, the funny thing is you don't. At least you can't. That's because, so if you go back and watch the previous live stream, I talked about it a lot. And it comes from my experience. I've been trying to develop stuff like this since last August. And so last August, obviously, we didn't have IP adapters. SDXL just came out. We didn't have control nets for SDXL. So I was working with 1.5. And what I came up with was a solution to start with an item of clothing, use various control nets on it, and generate a person inside of those item of clothing. And I was in talks with a few big e-commerces here in Europe because of that. And the thing is, all they wanted was a way to generate full outfits instead of a single item of clothing. So you couldn't do that unless you shot those like basically in the same way on a mannequin, and that wasn't scalable, so it kind of fell off. But then IP adapter came out, and zero shot generations came out. But the thing is, at least as far as I know, both of those tags are based on clip vision, and clip visions sees at a low resolution. That's because it's also trained on low resolution images. Like even Vit Big G, I think it's called, the latest we have. Most of it, like close to 90% of it, is trained on images that are closer to 128 by 128 than 512 by 512. So it doesn't have enough resolution to actually see details. And when I say seeing, I'm saying seeing, quote unquote. It doesn't really see stuff. I mean, it sees stuff, but not in the way we do. And it can pick up the overall look and feel, kind of texture of the source image, but it can't pick up for example, the exact texture. It can't pick up the exact patterns. It can't pick up logos. So it's completely useless for e-commerces that are not something like low end, like wish.com. And so there's no solution to that now. The best VTONs that we have, like if you look at it from non-fashion photographer, from a non-fashion industry professional, they might look good, but the images that they create are completely useless. So because like when you're paying like $2 for a t-shirt, then yeah, the consumer can get a t-shirt that is slightly different from the one that they're seeing on the web. But if you're paying hundreds, if not thousands, for a garment, you don't want to have to receive an item of clothing that is even slightly different from the one that you thought you were buying. And one of the things that e-commerces are most scared of is returns. So that's why you don't see this tag used in all of the e-commerces worldwide, yet at least. So coming back to your question, how can I do that? You can't. And also, if you go back to like the previous live stream, we actually tested out the limitations of clip vision by trying to go up in resolution of the generated image, and we see that we have the same issues with clip vision regardless of the resolution that we're working at. Like the same artifacts, the same texture issues, the same pattern issues that we have at lower resolution, we have at bigger resolutions, same exact ones. All right, so do you have any questions, chat? This is what we got today. And just to recap, we started from a Blender scene over here of a Mixamo model dancing. And it's a very simple setup. It's just an infinity backdrop with 2 key lights and the character moving. We rendered single frames. We imported those frames inside of a ControlNet pipeline and inside of an IP adapter pipeline, as well as a face in order to have the same model all throughout all the shots, a reference image for style, and the reference image for the dress that we want to use in each particular shot. And once we were done generating the reference picture, like the generated picture, we passed that through an IC light pipeline, which is a new thing that just came out a couple days ago, in order to relight that. And then we blended all those, like the generated picture and the relit picture, inside of Photoshop in order to get a look and feel that we wanted. Okay, let's see the questions. For product envisioning, I go back and forth between Comfy and Photoshop to fix logos and such. Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, you have to. I mean, unless you develop a workflow, which is possible, I've done that. That fixes the spatial coordinates of the product in space, like with a depth control net or a canny control net or a line art control net, for example. And then you can generate the environment, for example, but once you bring that environment inside of Photoshop, it has the same spatial coordinates. Even if the object, if the subject is different, it has the same spatial coordinates. It occupies the same space, so you can just overlay the original one on top of the generated image. If you're not doing that, you have to go back and forth and fix stuff. Yes. Yeah, yeah, Pranav, it's a no-go for now. Okay, so if you don't have any more questions, chat, well, thank you for taking your time to follow through in this quick experimentation, and I guess I will be seeing you all next week with a video about IC Light, this new pipeline that we have now, this new model that can relight images and possibly not make them all red like this one. Okay, thank you so much, and have a good weekend, have a good Friday, and see you all soon. Bye bye.